order this regular board meeting of the Sunnyvale School District Board of Education. This meeting is available in English and Spanish. Would the translator please give instructions on translation services available?
Buenas noches. Se utilizará la función de interpretación de Zoom para soporte en inglés y español. Todos los participantes de esta llamada deben seleccionar su idioma de preferencia, haciendo clic en el idioma correspondiente cuando el anfitrión active la función de interpretación. Dicha función se encuentra en el panel de herramientas en el icono del globo terráqueo. El modo de interpretación para esta reunión será el simultáneo. Gracias por su atención y colaboración. Good evening. The Zoom interpretation feature will be used in this Zoom meeting for English and Spanish support. All participants on this call must select their language of preference by clicking the language when the host turns on the interpretation feature. This is found in the word icon located on your feature panel. Interpretation for this meeting will be conducted simultaneously. Thank you for your attention and collaboration.
Thank you. Trustee Maginot is not able to join us tonight. I see all other board members are present, so we can begin. Item 2 is approval of the agenda. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak on this item? Seeing none in the room, if you're online, please use the raised hand feature at this time. Board, is there a motion to approve the agenda, possibly with the amendment that we may reconvene to closed session after open session?
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Did you
I'll
second?
second that.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Discussion, Nancy? No, I thought you said you had to, I thought you said yes. Okay. So seeing none, we'll vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Chair votes aye. With that, the motion passes. We're on to item 3, public comments on closed session items. Seeing no members of the public here, for those members, community members online, the time limits allocated to public testimony are 3 minutes per person and 20 minutes for public comments. Speakers are asked to give their name and affiliations so that an accurate record is reflected in the minutes. Per our board bylaw 9323, the board shall not prohibit public criticism of its policies, procedures, programs, services, acts, or omissions. During public comment, we encourage speakers to discuss issues with civility, to treat people whose opinions differ from their own with respect, and to focus on ideas, policies, and values. Seeing no members of the public present, if you're at home, please use the raised hand feature if you would like to comment on closed session items. Okay, seeing none, we will convene to closed session, public employee performance evaluation, and a conference with our labor negotiator. Thank you.
Yes. Leave this upstairs. Leave it yeah. As long as they're get up somehow.
I think it's the first time I'm there.
So the question would be, what time is
Hey, Mike, you're still good, huh?
Huh?
We're still good too,
What do you mean?
in terms of, still not having any symptoms or anything?
Well,
no, I'm just.
oh, okay.
Went over. No.
Alright. Come on, I know you. Yeah. I know. Oh, no. Just get it.
Pretty good timing.
Okay. Okay, we are reconvening to open session at 7 p.m. This meeting is available in English and Spanish. Would the translator please give instructions on translation services available?
Buenas noches. Se utilizará la función de interpretación de Zoom para soporte en inglés y español. Todos los participantes de esta llamada deben seleccionar su idioma de preferencia haciendo clic en el idioma correspondiente cuando el anfitrión active la función de interpretación. Dicha función se encuentra en el panel de herramientas, en el icono del globo terráqueo. El modo de interpretación para esta reunión será el simultáneo. Gracias por su atención y colaboración. Good evening. The Zoom interpretation feature will be used in this Zoom meeting for English and Spanish support. All participants on this call must select their language of preference by clicking the language when the host turns on the interpretation feature. This is found in the word icon located on your feature panel. Interpretation for this meeting will be conducted simultaneously. Thank you for your attention and collaboration.
Thank you. For those of you joining now, please note that a recording is being made at the direction of the board and that the recording may capture sounds of those attending the meeting. Okay, closed session announcements. The board met in closed session to discuss superintendent performance evaluation and to conference with our labor negotiator. No action was taken. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, item 6, comments from the board and superintendent. Nancy, do you want to begin?
I appreciate the board's action and advocacy in traveling to Washington, D.C. Over this past week. And I'm happy that we were able to send a group of committed board members to do that this particular year. It's the first time that we've ever been able to engage in this type of activity since I've been a member of the board. So thank you all. And I'll send in other comments later.
Thank you. Jeff?
No comments.
No comment? Isabel?
Yes. Well, first, yes, we arrived today from Washington, and it was an amazing opportunity. We will give a report complete because we thought that the best thing will be to wait for Michelle to be here because we did everything together.
Maybe next meeting.
Yeah, so we're gonna explain everything, all the points that we were advocating for the record and for the public. We
brochure.
yeah, they use the brochure, we're gonna do that. We met with most of the departments available that had anything to do with education, from nutrition to the Department of Education, everything that is related with us. It was a great week full of activities, and we will be more detailed next time. So because we wanted to be together and leave it on the record with more detail, because it was very, very important.
That's wonderful.
One of the most amazing things of the trip, I think everybody agreed, was to go to the African American Museum, the Smithsonian. When I went before, you needed to schedule a few weeks in advance, and we didn't do it on time. We didn't get the spot, so we all set the appointment months ago, and that's amazing. And it's a shame that we don't have anything that close for all the children, because it will mean the world that everybody will be able to live that and experience that. Other than that, since the last meeting, I was looking that we all went, well, a lot of the superintendent, a lot of her cabinet, Bridget, me, and Michelle went to the Murphy Awards.
Right.
It was a good
That's great.
opportunity to also meet with other people related with what's happening in the city and keep in contact, and always keep open the advocacy for the children. There have been meetings since then. There is also a teacher appreciation week next week, and we are gonna do we've been working very hard in our respective schools to make sure that our teachers know how much we love them and how much we need them and care about them. And for the teachers listening, we love you, we care about you, and we are gonna try to show you, well, every day, not just next week. Yeah, that's pretty much, we were in Washington, so I had to meet the LAC, otherwise I will have a report about that, but hopefully I will be able to meet and get a minute about that and update where we are at the moment with that. So yes, pretty much.
Thank you. That was really well said. I'm working on a lot of those things with Isabel, and so everything she said, I completely agree with. And next week at Sunnyvale Middle School, they're celebrating the teachers and staff together, and so that's a really nice week-long event of carbohydrates and other festivities. So that should be really fun. But I've sent in most of my comments, and like she said, we'll do a little mini moment of presentation of all the awesome things we learned about in DC that are going to help the kids.
Perfect. Okay, just a couple of quick announcements and then an introduction, which will be fun. So Friday is the ACSA, Association of California School Administrators, Region 8, which is actually Santa Clara County, annual awards. And one of our administrators, Shayna Reel, assistant principal at Fairway, is going to be receiving a Rising Star Award. So she was nominated as one of the outstanding new administrators, and she's going to win that award and be presented with it Friday, or it's tomorrow. So that's exciting for Shana. Just a reminder that Future Chefs is actually tomorrow at 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock, is that right? So if any of you can swing by, that would be great. We might call you into action to judge. If you can't, that's okay too. I will be there. Maury will be there, and the person I'm going to introduce at the end will be there, but I'm not going to say his name yet. Okay. Also, don't forget that the SEF, Sunnyvale Education Foundation Mixer or fundraiser is next Wednesday at Michael's at Shoreline at 5:30. So if you're able to go and you haven't RSVP'd yet, please do that. Or if you don't know how to do that, then let Jesus know. We'll figure it out for you. But really important that as many of us go to that as possible because they're so supportive of us. And we need to be supportive of them. And then donors will be there, and then it shows the connection. So that's critical. And of course, I'll be there. And so now on to the most fun part. We have our new Child Nutrition Services Supervisor to introduce. His name is Terry Chore. And so if you can come on up, Terry, and introduce yourself. Brant was getting ready to clap. Brant, you can clap. We're happy to have you, Terry, if you can say a few words.
Yeah, sure. So thank you, Dr. Gallagher, for those introductions. My name is Terry Chore. I am happy to be with the Child Nutrition Department for Sunnyvale School District. A brief history of my work is I was previously with Santa Clara Unified for the past 3 years as a field supervisor, overseeing a few schools over there, also in charge of like their child nutrition program. And I look forward to bringing healthy, nutritious meals to our students and promoting food equity and moving towards scratch cooked meals as well. So thank you.
We are so excited to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations on your job.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And Terry starts his work at 6 a.m. in the morning, so don't feel compelled to stay.
Oh, thank you.
Great. Oh, okay. So, all right. So now it's on to comments from the Sunnyvale Education Association. If there's an official representative to speak, I don't see one in the audience. Is there anyone online? Okay. How about from the comments from the California School Employees Association? Is there a official representative online? No? Okay, comments from the public, item 9. This is the time to comment about things that are not on the agenda. This portion of the agenda provides an opportunity for members of the public to directly address the governing board on any item of interest to the public. However, provisions of the Brown Act, Government Code 54954.2a and .3 preclude any action being taken on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. Time limits allocated to public testimony are 3 minutes per person and 20 minutes for public comments. Speakers are asked to give their name and affiliation so that an accurate record is reflected in the minutes. As a reminder, per our board bylaw 9323, the board shall not prohibit public criticism of its policies, procedures, programs, services, acts, or omissions. During public comment, we encourage speakers to discuss issues with civility, to treat people whose opinions differ from their own with respect, and to focus on ideas, policies, and values. I do not see anyone here in person. If there's anyone online, you may use the raised hand feature now. Nope. Okay, seeing none, we are on to item 10, presentations. Columbia Middle School presentation, Principal Daniel Ho.
Good evening, everyone. I'm just waiting for the presentation to go up, but you know what, I just realized, I think this is the first time I actually get to stand in front of you as a principal, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. Even though I've been in this business for myself, so thank you. So as mentioned, I'm Daniel Aguilar Poe. I'm the proud principal at Columbia Middle School. Been in the district 11 years now, but it's only my second as principal. And it's been a crazy 2 years. I can honestly say that just because with everything that's been going on. Just going to present to you on everything that's been going on in Colombia in 20 minutes. I'll set my timer mic. So I'm going to start off with data, but whenever I do data presentations, I've really become a storyteller of data, right? So when we look at this data and we look at the supports and everything that's going on in Columbia Middle School, it's important to kind of take a look at different type of students that we serve throughout our school and the wide range. So when we're looking at this data, think of our sixth grader here, who is a newcomer, right? Who's an ELD2 student, so still developing their English acquisition. They're progressing academically. They have 2s and 3s in their classes, so they're staying afloat. They've gone from emerging to expanding in their English abilities. They have a 504 plan, but they also have an intervention power math class. Then we have a 7th grade student who has academic and behavioral struggles, who has an IEP. They're known as a long-term EL. And because at Columbia we allow them to have an elective, this student partakes to being a teacher's assistant because they like helping out. Interventions, they have flex study skills class because of their IEP needs. Then we have an 8th grader who's in advanced math, taking both algebra and geometry, has 4 in all classes, was reclassified, so initially was an EL student. They have the elective of being banned, but they also have various other enrichment opportunities, such as being a web leader, being a part of the National Junior Honor Society, and being a part of after-school sports. So these are just some of the students that you'll see in the stories represented in our data. So the data, I'm not gonna lie, it's not great. It's been a year and a half since the pandemic, and we're seeing it. So here you can see our NWA reading proficiency scores in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And as you can see, 6th grade, there was very little growth of 2%. In 7th grade was our biggest growth with the 9% jump. And then our 8th grade jumped up 4%, right? But as I'm looking at this, I wanted to do specifically for the board was really look at our EL population, right? Because they make up roughly 33% of our school. So didn't fare well here. They are behind our general population. So 11% down to 7% in the winter, 12% an increase in 7th grade up to 16%, and then 8th grade is from 8% to 10%. Right, so those students that presented are all represented in this data, and that's why I specifically chose EL, RFET, or students with IEPs in there. But it's one thing to look at proficiency, right? But it's another to look at growth, right? Are they making academic progress? And what I noticed in my deep dive, right, is that a large population of our 6th graders already come into this what's known as a level 1 in our NWA, which is a percentage between 0 and 30% roughly. Level 2 is around 30 to 55%, depending on the grade level. And then level 3 and 4 is really where I want our students to be. That's when they're really closer to proficiency. So as you can see in our EL population, our 6th graders already came in at level 1. So they were already 20, there was a total of 56. And in the beginning of the school year, there was 33 that were in that level 1, 34. 5 moved up to a level 2 and 1 moved all the way up to jump 2 levels. In that second level tier, 9 stayed the same, right? Where in first level, 28 stayed the same. 2 moved up a level, but then we had some decline there. So 10 of those students moved down. And then our level 3 students that started off as level 3, dropped down a level. So it's important to know like NWA is a moving target. So the RIT score doesn't stay the same. So like if they had a 214 and that made them proficient in the winter, if they still have that same 214 in the fall, and then they have the 214 in the winter, same RIT score, but they're not in the proficiency band anymore. Very similar in 7th grade, where we had 7, there was a lot more growth here, which was a positive, right? We had seven students move up to a level 2 from that level 1. We had 8 students move up from level 2 to a level 3. so being proficient. And then we had a couple students decline at each one of those levels as well. 8th grade, very similar data, right? So we're seeing a consistent pattern, right? So 7 moved up to a level 2 from level 1 out of 29. 2 moved up to a level 3, so moved into the proficiency range, and 3 went down back to a level 1. So overall, when you're looking at this data, right, overall proficiency growth, there was overall proficiency growth in all levels. The largest proficiency growth came in our ELA 7 classes, right? So there was a growth of 30% net growth for 7th grade ELs, which is huge, big growth. And that was the grade level that we also had the most overall growth. And then there was also 13% net growth in 8th grade ELs. However, we were looking at what's going on in 6th grade because there was a decline of 7% of 6th grade ELs, right? Now our math data. So very similar to, I've seen other schools and districts, math is a major focus area that we need to tackle. Our overall math proficiencies here in 6th grade, you see that we did have a jump of 7% from 19 to 26%. We had a jump in 7th grade from 20 to 32%, and then from 29 down to 23% in 8th grade. And when I first saw that dip in 8th grade, it can be heartbreaking, right? That's why I tie it to stories and students, and we got to make it real because it's real to teachers, right? And it's real to me, and it's real to, I didn't introduce my assistant principals who's back here with me as well. But that was hard to see, right? So I took that and I broke it down to ELs to see how our English language learners doing. And in 6th grade, we see even though there was growth there, our EL students didn't grow. They actually declined. They went from 3% proficient down to 0. In 7th grade, it went up from 5% to 6%, and then in 8th, it went from 2 to 3. Okay. And here, I'm also looking at growth. As you can see, it's a wash in 6th grade, no growth. 7th grade, there are some students that moved up, and most of them stayed. And then in 8th grade, the same thing in terms of our ELs. But as you do a deeper dive, right, and it's not all the graphs are here. The graphs were presented at my district visit, right? Proficiency growth was 7% of 7th grade ELs grew, 5% of 8th grade ELs grew. But when I broke it down by every grade level, right, it was a 4% net growth in 6th grade, a 9% net growth in 7th grade. This is a total student poly. And even though there was the biggest decline in 8th grade, that was also the grade that had the most growth overall in all the classes. So it had 19% net growth. So students are moving, right? We still got to focus on our ELs. The deltas, there was no growth in 6th grade ELs, and then there was a decline of 6% in 8th grade. But in my deep dive of the data, I saw that there was also 20 more students that tested in the winter than the fall, and all those students tested in the proficiency. So those could have been new students, or it could have been students that were absent at the beginning of the year. But the question about this journey about our 3 students there is about what are we going to do about this, right? So over the year, Mary Beth has presented this framework, right? But there's a change since I took principal, since I became principal. On the bottom, you'll see the social emotional mobility and the school environment components. I put that as our foundation because I feel those are our strong suits. We're a PBIS spotlight school. We really work on SEL through advisory and just really showing kids that we care about them, and that shows up in our data, in our Panorama data. But the part that we need to focus in on is that top instructional component of setting high expectations and still providing the support structures for all our students. So one of the things that has changed is you'll see the word WICR, which is an acronym up there, right? So that's part of the AVID framework. So as principal, I have made the decision that we're going to kind of start focusing in and narrow in our focus on instruction by looking at AVID. And Dr. Gallagher asked the question at the beginning of the year, what's our 4-minute mile, right? For me, it was what's my Super Bowl? At a middle school level, sometimes we don't see what happens to our students afterwards, right? So what we're going to work toward is making sure that our students are college and career ready by the time they leave Columbia. That's going to be our 4-minute mile. So we're going to make sure that they're prepared to take rigorous courses, that they have the opportunities, so knocking down those barriers for them, and making sure that they have student agency, teaching them how to set short, long-term goals and following up with that and having reflective practices. As educators, we're going to insist on that rigor. We're going to break down those barriers, but some of the most important stuff is aligning the work, making sure that there's specific strategies that we're using to address our ELs, because if we do focus in on them, it's going to benefit the entire school, right? So we got to make sure of that. So with Wicker, this year, it's about writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, reading. All this stuff is really just good teaching practices and universal design for learning. It all falls under these buckets. This year, because we were just starting anew, we just kind of decided to focus in on organizations just to kind of teach basic skills again. Kids were out of school, teachers were out of school. It's taken a while to come back and just to be organized and to be prepared for the work that's happening in the classrooms. So our best practices, and now there's that incorporation of Wicker, is that we are looking for learning goals and language goals, right, as we go into the classrooms. So a lot of the organizational skills. Vocabulary and linguistic structures taught. So sentence frames, which fall under writing, collaboration, reading, oral language practice, so student structured talks, so collaborations. Post-reading strategies, which we've done some PD on, reciprocal reading groups, stuff like that, and 3 reads. Organization, so focusing on agenda, digital planners, and goal setting. So once again, here's kind of the breakdown of the organization and why it's important. So we presented this to students because they are more successful. It's even part of our announcements. People that are organized, right, have a higher success rate. And so we want to make sure that our kids understand the why too. This year we focused in on, the big 3. So goal setting and reflection was the first thing that we rolled out through our advisory program. That's something where kids develop weekly goals. They created SMART goals, and every week they would check in with their advisors and see if they met the goal. If they didn't, then they would reflect back and see how can they meet their goals. Digital planners, because we had Chromebooks, so we figured digital planners. Next year I'm thinking to going back to the old school of paper writing out your planners. There's something about just writing something down that I think really helps just remember that, hey, I wrote something down that's due, rather than having to check a device for students. And then kind of backpack checks, just making sure that our kids have the materials necessary to be successful coming into the school day. So it was just kind of those kind of big 3s. And then each department had individual goals. So with our instruction this year, we also incorporated the SEO TOSA support. So this year we had students that were identified because they were below the 25th percentile in that NWA, and they weren't receiving any services. So our support and equitable outcomes teachers were Miss Lee and Miss Poston in ELA, and Miss Frankie and Miss Vicky in math. So in 7th grade, we only initially started with a part-time teacher because Miss Lee was still teaching, so she wasn't released full-time, so she was only able to work with a few students. And when Ms. Poston came back from leave, we were able to expand the program. And as you can see, like, these are students that needed intensive intervention, and they were able to graduate 3 out of the 7th graders that initially started with them, and 5 out of the 24. And they're continuing to work with 14 7th graders at the moment and 24 8th graders. I did have the data on there, like I want to say 17 out of the initial 19 showed growth on their NWA RIT scores. With math, we focused in on 6th grade this year because we have an additional block of time with them. So through a combination of interviews, NWA, and pre-assessment data, we were able to identify students and their area of need, and then we were able to tackle that need. So then students were divided into small groups during Power Math. And what ended up happening during our data team presentations was we had 100% increased growth in mathematics skills, and we had a 93% increase in division skills. So all those basic skills that students were having trouble with, because of the work of the SEO TOSAs, we saw a lot of great growth from those individual students. So the school environment, right? We want to make sure that all 3 of those students feel safe, comfortable coming to school. So one is to make sure that we come to school, right? This is the first, in all the years that I've been here, it's the lowest that I've seen of our attendance, but then again, we were in a pandemic, right? As you see that January timeframe really took a shock, like really hit us hard as it hit everybody else. And we're still recovering from that. But our behaviors have actually improved in terms of classroom referrals that are being written. We are way underneath the norm where we usually were at. We're underneath even the 25th percentile nationwide. So behaviors inside the classroom are actually not really the issue. But what we noticed was a complete shift in the types of behaviors that we were seeing in the pandemic, right? Once we come back to classrooms, we saw an increase in physical aggression and property damage, which that is not the norm. It's usually like kind of defiance, disruptions in class. That's typically the norm. So that was something that we had to adjust kind of our approach, because we had to figure out, hey, what are we going to do? So what we've been doing is a lot of restorative practices. I want to say Mr. Bradley and Dr. Teramoto have done over 100 healing circles or mediations with students. It's starting to catch on. Students are starting to come into the office and be like, hey, Mr. Bradley, I'm hearing this rumor. Can we have assistance fixing this problem? So now they're starting to be a lot more proactive. So it's starting to catch on. We've also done like a girls group where they've been able to figure out how to do these restorative practices themselves. We do community service in lieu of suspensions and do grade level meetings. If there's a big issue that's been going on campus, we'll bring the grade levels together and discuss it with them. But even though we're doing these restorative practices, it doesn't mean that the students don't have consequences. And then unfortunately, because some of those behaviors that happen, we have had out of school suspensions and in-school suspensions. But I said we're trying to do the restorative piece. We want to make sure that's the healing happens. But with some of these, there still has to be these consequences. So that's what we have. Then we have Strive 2.0. This is a program that's been at Columbia now for 3 or 4 years. I can't remember how long, to be honest. And we've kind of moved the focus away from high tier behaviors. It's become more based on engagement. I looked at the data from when we were in virtual school and looked at their academic data, and I saw students that weren't engaged during that time and who had low academic scores were identified to be in Strive. So the Strive model changed. It became more of SEL and academic. So really trying to focus in on kids to get them engaged. Based on teacher feedback, we looked at creating a Strive math class this year as well. So now they piggyback on math and ELA, and it serves about 13 students. And then Strive Flex was an idea from Mr. Gonzalez to, hey, let's open this up. Sometimes kids just need some help. And 11 students opted in during Try 2, and I think it's about 12 to 13 students that opted in for Try 3. So we wanted to get rid of, Strive's a great program, but we also want to make sure not to provide other labels, right? Another tier 3 label. So Strive really can be for anyone. And it's kind of, we're trying to be more proactive and preventative as opposed to reactive. So that's our Strive 2.0 model. Now, in terms of social emotional learning, we got to make sure that the kids are safe and feel cared for. So I took all the counseling out of the main office. I felt it was always awkward when a student walked in and said, hey, I'm here to see so-and-so. It's like, oh, what are you here for? Oh, I'm here for, and I felt that was just, wasn't the route to go, right? They didn't have that privacy. So we created the new Student Service Center, which is located in one of the portables on campus. Students are now eligible. There's a little QR code that they can use if they need to make an appointment with a counselor or talk to someone. So it's easily accessible to them. There was a completion of a girls' circle curriculum that happened with about 6 of some of our female students that struggled the most, I would say, and got into a lot of social issues with one another. So that was a success. The grade level assemblies really allows us to address the campus climate and really talk about respect in each other and our community. And then advisory has really been successful since implementation of last year because there's that one adult that student has on campus that they could turn to. And then the second step curriculum has been a nice addition to it. But we need to be careful not to make advisory kind of a, hey, this is where we're sending everything through, right? So we want to make sure that we're working on relationships and the SEL. So what does this look like? Well, now we've had 212 walk-ins going into counseling. 72 students are in counseling. 10 have been referred out. 34 have graduated out of counseling. 6 girls completed the girls' circle, and then we have 8 2-pay peer advocates. So it's the anti-tobacco group. So they during the anti-tobacco day, they're the ones that put together a presentation, a video that was sent out to all families. Students watched it in their advisories, and they were able to answer questions and be eligible for prizes. Another big focus has been celebrating our differences, right? Being purposeful and acknowledging and celebrating those differences through slides that we created, through just making sure that our kids see themselves in not only in the content, but also across campus. The Teacher of Color group have made celebrating Black History Month, Women History Month, the Filipino History, the Hispanic Heritage Month, Asia Pacific Islander Month is coming up. So we're making sure to present this through advisory to be able to celebrate those differences, right? And then a new initiative that just came out. So last year I had the entire staff do, it was the Step and Speak Out LGBTQ plus training, right? Because we had a lot more students that were non-conforming to non-binary. So we wanted to educate our staff on that. So that was the first step. This year, we then incorporated the Out for Safe Schools initiative. We have 30 staff members that committed to be allies and show their commitment by wearing their badges after watching the video. Partnered with Dr. Arpante out of the county office, and she's coming in to do some professional development. We also have the return of the Rainbow Unity Alliance. And this isn't just about LGBTQ plus students, it's about being inclusive to all students. So we want to make sure that, that students know that we're here for them. And with all 3 of those students, out of that triangle that you saw, the piece that I always felt like, hey, we need more of was this parental involvement component, right? Because I just spoke to the incoming 6th grade families last night and was talking about like, hey, here's the model, here's my framework, but it's not gonna work unless I have you here, unless we have you here, because we need you. So we have really been working on parent engagement this year, bringing them back onto campus. So we have an active ELAC that has 30 plus families, and the work, and I give a lot of credit to Claudia Estrada, who's our community outreach coordinator. She does a fantastic job. We have an active PTSA board that's been meeting and working with us. We have a full school site council. The biggest thing that I'm proud of is that this FEI cohort that's actually at Columbia right now, there's about 26 families who have now completed 16 weeks of teaching them how to navigate the educational system to be able to ensure that their kids are college and career ready. Last Saturday, I came in because they went on the field trip. So make sure to provide them buses to go out to Foothill College so that they could get that experience. So we sent about, I want to say 20 something families, about 50 people in total that ended up going on that field trip, and they just loved it. Because even though they're Foothill College students, technically, because they enrolled in this course, some of them never stepped on college, right? And next year, like I really want to make sure that I push that college going culture and start sending our students to university trips because I need that seed planted early. The other thing that's really helped us is Facebook, right? So like just liking us on Facebook, a lot of information gets posted on there. So parents are getting the information quicker rather than email. Right, text messaging has been big as well. So Mr. Valley has really tackled that. So we've been able to get the message out more, and we're starting to see more participation through this group that we're building. Mr. Barr and I, those of you that know, all of you know Mr. Barr, the principal at San Miguel, when we were assistant principals together, we used to talk about, hey, we need a place for parents to call their own on that campus, right? It's great that I'm not going to knock the neighborhood center, it's there, it's great, but it's also an additional stop somewhere else that they have to go, and they might not know people there. So what we're trying to do is create this family resource center, right? It opened up on February 2nd, 2022. And we have a partnership with the Sunnyvale Community Services. There's one of their liaisons comes down and has trained about 10 of our parents to be leadership group leaders, parent leaders. And they call themselves the promotoras, or the promoters, right? So it's really them getting educated on the resources that are available to the Sunnyvale families. And now they're the connection, right? They're the familiar face. No longer do they have to go to a different place. They could come to the school site, go to the Family Resource Center where there's access to computers, there's access to how to figure out the Power School, Google Classroom. There's a little reading station in there for if you have younger kids. So we wanted to provide them the opportunity to have a place. And this is ran by parents, not ran by us. So that's the important piece. And then I remember I was there for it. They were talking about having a conversational English course for Spanish-speaking families. And one of the families stepped up and said, okay, well, we'll do that. We'll start twice a month and see where it goes. So that people are starting to attend that as well. And it's open to all families, right? And we're trying to spread it out. The city of Sunnyvale Community Services, I got permission from from Jeremy to have them come in and actually have like a space for them there as well during the school day. Like I said, I think it's about knocking out those barriers and making sure that families feel comfortable and have that place, because without them, this job is very, very difficult. And so we need their support. And I think I made it my feed. It is over. That is my presentation. So sorry if I was talking fast. I really want to make sure that I hit the 30.
One thing, if you could add, could you explain the CS in the bottom corner?
Oh, consafos. So what consafos means, right? There's a lot of different translations to it. It comes from Dr. Bruce Yaga's work out of Stanford University. I was actually, his daughter was one of my professors at San Jose State. She actually presented at our Equity Summit, right? So consafos means with respect, right? So whenever I talk about data, like I want to make sure that teachers know that it's with respect, not with all due respect, but with respect, right? That we're going to talk about this work because it's personal, and I want people to know that anything that I say, while we might not agree, it's with respect, right? And that's the approach that I have with dealing with any human being, is with respect.
Appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so it's time for public comment on the presentation.
Okay.
So if there's no public comment in person that I see. So if there's any member of the public who wishes to speak on the presentation from Columbia Middle School, please use the raised hand feature now. Okay, seeing none, board, any questions or comments? No,
Anyone?
go ahead, Isabel.
Okay. Well, first, we do appreciate all the efforts that you do in social emotional and things like Strive and the Center for the Parents and the Center for the Kids. And I think that's amazing. And I know that the conditions have been very hard, that you guys are doing really heroic work and making things as good as possible, and even better, doing the impossible sometimes. And we do see and we do appreciate that and all the models. I think the main thing will be that we would like to know, you as the expert there, what else do we need to do? What else can we do to help the children and to move the numbers into something that, is going to prepare them even more? I know the numbers are just that the kids are way deeper than that, but it's kind of a little temperature to put them like how well prepared they're getting up to a point. I mean, it's at least something that we can understand easier.
So I think if you ask the families, a lot of them would agree that we need an extended day, right? And KLS does that, but it's not necessarily targeted intervention that is needed. When asked about like, hey, what teachers can support like after school, I think it's just a tough job, especially over the last 2 years, that people are just kind of burnt and tired. So it's hard, it's been very difficult to do after school things. So maybe contracting out, figuring out how I can partner up with the universities around the area to bring in tutors, rolling out Avid fully, because we didn't have tutors this year like we've had in the past. We also weren't able to have the sole program that was out of Fremont that was developed a few years ago to help with tutoring on campus. But to me, it's really that, to be more targeted with after school interventions, trying to find that, or even before school interventions, like the office hours that our SEO TOSAs are doing, or some of the teachers that they hold on Thursday mornings has been very beneficial. So it's with a lot of it, especially math, they just need more exposure. For our EL students, the constraint that we have is I will never take away the elective of a EL student, right? And because I don't think that's right. But it's hard to provide them that additional math support during the day because they're required to take the EL support class that they need, right, in order to be in compliance. So I have rotations where I look at data and I'm able to free some of them up, but it's not enough of them. So I got to find creative ways to be able to address that. And I wish I had the correct answer to say, hey, this is what I need. I just know I need more time, and I need to find the right people to be able to provide some of those supports after school.
So you think you've been having also trouble filling up personnel that you need, like you say, you need more TOSAs, you need more AVID teachers, you need.
Actually, we're because of the whole vision of going AVID, I actually have the 2 AVID teachers that will be teaching the elective next year. So we're coming back. This year we only had 1 AVID section. Next year we'll have the 2 grade levels again. There's been more teachers to actually do the summer PD training on AVID. So I think it's 6 of us that are going over the summer, giving up our summer to go to the AVID conferences to learn better how to implement worker strategies school-wide more. So we have some key players in place, but like we still need more. I don't know if it's staffing or if it's a partnership with someone that actually knows how to do reading comprehension with students or small groups or book clubs, but we got to find different ways.
And that will be only for after school, not the main stuff.
The problem with the main if I put it into the main component, then I might have to take away their elective, and that's what I don't want to do. And I've even tried to get creative because we have A and B days on the school. What happens if I were to do A and B weeks and they could rotate out between an EL support class and their math support class, which might be possible. It's a nightmare scheduling wise, but it might be possible.
And you have a big wellness center. Do you feel like it's well staffed?
The wellness center?
Yes.
In terms of the student service center, yeah, we have the counselors, we have the interns in place to provide the counseling. In terms of the actual health workers, we have the health clerk, and now Dagmar is actually, the district nurse is actually on our site now. So we have plenty of support there.
Nancy, I have a couple things I wanted to say, but I want to leave it open. Do you have anything you want to add or say?
Yes, I appreciate bringing the concepts of AVID out to the entire community. I think that that organization is a life skill, and so I appreciate that you focused in on that. There are so many things over the past 2 years that we've experienced that don't equivocate to what you need when you're fully returning to school. So I appreciate the emphasis with intentionality linked to the AVID program around that essential life skill. So thank you for continuing and remembering about that focus.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to ask a little bit about Strive 2.0. I think when I went and toured, looked around the site this year, I went into the classroom and I talked to the teacher and I talked to the kids just for a minute. And it was clear that it was a focus on, engaging with the kids and just very supportive. I was just wondering if you feel like is 13 like the right size of that class? And do you feel like if you had, like, do you feel like that's a model that could be used, like, or expanded, or is it not necessary? You feel like?
I think it all depends on what the data says, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna start looking at try 1, try 2 data and looking at attendance for this year to start identifying 8th grades for next year's STRIVE program. So I think it's just gonna depend on the class. But I probably wouldn't wanna grow it past like 20, because I think that even though there's 3 adults there, you might start losing some of that personal connection. But the part that I like is that STRIVE Flex, which people get to opt into. And students that I never thought would need that support opted themselves in and decided to stay in there.
Nice. Okay, and then just the other thing I just wanted to get on the record is, you know, I know you're ready for this question, but how's Juntos going? And
Oh, so
tell us about
Juntos.
that transition and the growth.
So with the Juntos program, the challenging work is still ahead, right? It's still growing it out to 7th and 8th grade, making sure that we articulate with the world language department over at Fremont to backwards map what they expect of our students. Because based on our model, they should be eligible to take the AP Spanish language exam by freshman year. Probably wouldn't be a good idea to take it freshman year just because of the transition to high school. It can be very difficult. I remember working in high schools, you know, freshmen struggle. So that's going to be the work. We've been working with Dr. Munoz and articulating through San Miguel, but even that has been a little bit tricky because I have 2 current Spanish language teachers, right, that are part of the Juntos program. But in terms of the program itself, it's seamless. They are a part of our community. There's nothing that separates them. I think they're a little bit tired of being together the whole time since they've been together since kindergarten. But they'll be able to spread out a little bit more 7th and 8th grade year. So I think the program is going well. I think it's going well enough where I'm bringing my daughter over from her dual immersion over to Columbia for next year.
Okay, well, thank you so much. It's just great to see you, and it's great to have you here and see all the work you're doing.
Awesome.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity and have a great night.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Danielle.
Okay, so we're at item 11, review and discussion. Review and discuss the local control and accountability plan, engagement and feedback update. Dr. Tasha Dean, Assistant Superintendent of Student Services.
A lot of twos tonight. Okay. We'll take this off if it's okay for everyone. Good evening, board. I'm pleased to bring to you tonight information with regards to an engagement on our LCAP plan. Tonight's communication is really about reminding us with regards to what is our LCAP, why are we doing it, but with the intentional focus this evening with regards to engagement and what that actually means. So that's what we'll be focusing on this evening. Hey, it worked. Awesome. So what is the local accountability plan? So again, it's basically the plan that's been described for us for the through the California Department of Education, where we're focusing on how we're going to provide what our students need basically in our district. And so right now we're proceeding into the 2nd year of our plan, which we're currently in a 3-year plan for that programming. As a reminder, we have the 8 identified areas here, or actually it's 9, but emphasizing the 8 with regards to how we're going to support in the different areas. And so in our action plans, in our goals that we've written specifically in our plan, we're looking at these particular LCAP priorities as a part of that programming for a district. So to emphasize a little bit more, when we talk about engagement, some of this guidance is coming from the Department of Education. So that when we're talking about engagement, we're talking about, of course, student engagement, and what does that mean? So trying to put basically a visual to some of the data, both qualitative and quantitative, that we're looking at to determine how we are engaging our students. So we're looking at dropout rates, graduation rates. I know Mr. Poe just gave a presentation where we're talking about the emphasis of our college readiness. And that starts now, not when kids get to 11th grade. We have to think about that now. So it's really emphasizing some of that work. The other area is about school climate. You know, how do our staff feel on campus? Our students feel on campus? Everyone feels on campus. Is it safe? Are we providing best practices when it comes to discipline and how we're intervening with our students? And some of the other things that we do, our surveys that we're doing. We're currently in the midst of our Panorama survey at this time. So these are all things that get voices from our community on how things are going, and so that we can create safe learning environments so our students can be most successful. And then the last area, parent involvement, very critical component for us as a school district. In general, we feel this is a place that we're going to really beef up this year, and you'll be hearing a lot more as I go through the presentation this evening with regards to some of those details. But these are the main areas as I speak this evening on what we've collected to date, and we will continue to collect data on as it pertains to engagement in our LCAP plans. So just as a reminder, we have 5 critical goals in our current LCAP plan. Many of those areas are there. Just to highlight them again, we're focused, of course, on high quality teaching and staff to do that who are diverse. Looking at equitable emphasis on career and college readiness. Our emphasis on social emotional learning and equity emphasis. The foster of welcome and inclusive environments is kind of that merge of safety, climate, as well as our equity focus. And then ultimately our big focus with regards to our English language learners. And we'll be doing more work in those particular areas. So what feedback do we have at this time? We had our recent, our second annual first in-person equity summit this school year. And so as a part of getting feedback, as a part of that session, we utilized our thought exchange process in addition to table talks that we had during the session. And so this first slide is just kind of a word cloud of some of the details that we got and captured. And you'll see some areas are popping out here with regards to voice, community, English support, awareness, students. And so as I go through the data, you will see where some of those areas will be fleshed out a little bit more with some specific comments and details with regards to what that means. So our highlights, it's very interesting, and also board, I think you will be very pleased with some of these because seeing some of these items are things that you've also spoke about and want to emphasize. But some of those areas are teacher staff diversity representation. Our HR department's been working hard already on that, but that came up again as an area of that our community wants us to focus in on. Communication and equity of voice. You've heard that a bit already this evening, and you will continue to hear that theme throughout the conversation this evening. And then opportunities for our English learners. And so we'll continue to focus on these particular areas. Just to give you a few, this is not everything, but we wanted to try to highlight the high point areas of the communication that we received through the thought exchange. This is feedback specifically from the Equity Summit. And so some things that we've learned. So communications are around the particular areas of student voices. I will say I'm biased because I think there's probably one of the most valuable voices that we need to capture, and we will do a better job of doing that. The other piece that we did in seeing this information had the benefit of that. So in launching our Panorama survey this time around, we actually went to students and had them read the questions that would be going out to them to give us feedback on that. And as a result, we changed some, we removed some. And so that was a really valuable experience. And we got voices at our elementary as well as our middle school level with regards to that. So we'll continue to capture and work towards getting student voices. We also went to our employee groups in order to seek their feedback and participation on our 5 goals as well as the action areas. And just as a reminder on this particular chart, you'll see there's a triangle if you want to keep that. So that means that's something we were doing that we want to continue to engage with. The plus is something that we might want to add, emphasize, tweak, do something more with it. And then the minus is maybe reduce that, get rid of that, think about that, do something with that. So just so you have context about what the symbols mean. So you'll see that there's areas and goals 1 through 5 of things that we can do and emphasize. A few areas I want to emphasize again, you'll see a theme running through this about community, about students, about, really keeping who we're serving at the core of our recommendations. And I think that's really pleasing and speaks to our Sunnyvale community that they're really thinking about who are our customers, who are we serving, and what is it we need to do. So good job of getting that feedback there. To give you some of the types of recommendations that actually came from some of that overview slide that you just saw, some emphasis areas that came up. You'll see there about the anti-bias teaching training. So teachers are asking for that. As well as other staff are asking for that type of continued support and coaching to do that. You've heard about our SEO TOSAs. That has gone well. That's something we did as a result of some grant funding we had, and we're able to roll out this year. And so we're the feedback that have been given thus far is that's working well. And so we're looking at how to strengthen that and continue to move forward with that. And our teams in curriculum and instruction have really been focusing in on that and how to strengthen that as we finish this year, but also as we move into next school year. We have solicited feedback to date from our district advisory group, our DLAT group, which is our advisory group from our English language speaking families. And so you'll see some of their emphasis here. And I think it's aligned very well to Mr. Poe's presentation. You'll see there's a lot of emphasis on high school coursework, college preparation, and emphasis about what is that ABIT program and how can we learn more about it with some of the comments and details that went with some of these plus signs that you see here. So there's a lot of emphasis about not just learning, but learning at this level as well as a higher level, which were some themes from the families. We also have solicited feedback at this point from all of our schools through their school site councils and from other parent groups, PTAs, and others that they have been meeting with, our principals. And so you'll see here a summary of some of that feedback. We are continuing to get feedback, but at this point, this kind of highlights some of the areas. You'll see a lot of student voice here. You'll see a lot of equity related items here. You'll also see emphasis on continuing pathways for that career and college readiness. And of course, the engagement factors are all here, both from staff, students, and families. So common themes throughout feedback that we're being given. More specifically here, school site feedback on goals 4 and 5 here with regards to how we communicate in some of these areas. You'll see some feedback here, recommendations on how to get information out to parents as well, how to support more parent education opportunities for our families amongst different types of areas, education, enrichment, et cetera, and how to do that most effectively. You'll see also additional themes for some of our more needier families around language, special education, just really those areas where we're trying to figure out how to open the door a little bit wider to be sure we're providing access to those who really need it. A few visuals again for some of what those comments look like. Very, very different areas, but definitely a theme around hearing the voices of our parents and hearing the voices of our students. Okay, So to summarize a bit, going back to the 5 goals that we have emphasized, we have those listed there again. So we had 5 particular goals. And so when we looked at those 5 goals that we had, the highlighted area that you see here are the themes that basically came up when you talk about goal 1, things that we're going to continue, improve, increase. And so as we are in the midst now of updating our annual LCAP plan, these are things that we're going to be paying attention to. So whether we're going to be readjusting goals, increasing some things, taking some things away, it will be in the with the focus of implementing those goals to fidelity and doing a better job. And at the core of that will definitely be parent communication, parent education, and student voice with regards to the work that we'll be doing as we move forward. Still to come, and that you will be able to capture as you as we bring our draft annual update for LCAP, we will continue to get additional input. We have plans to do late May a specific forum for special education families with students to get their voices more specifically around some particular areas. And this will support not only our LCAP, but also our comprehensive early intervening plan that we have to work on. So it'll capture opportunity for both things there. We'll continue to get, we met this week with our advisory group again. So we'll have some additional feedback coming that will inform that process. In addition to that, we completed our Healthy Kids survey. So we've kind of just about analyzed that data. And then we're in the midst of our Panorama survey data right now. And all of that will move over and help us in informing our annual plan and making revisions the way that we need to. And so with that, I want to thank you and take any questions that you might have at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. First, we're going to ask for public comments. I don't see any members of the public here. So if there's a member of the public online who would like to speak on this item, please use the raise hand feature now. Okay, seeing none, board questions about the family engagement process for the LCAP or community engagement process, not just families, engagement process.
Yes.
What am I calling this?
Engagement. Yes.
Engagement.
Engagement. Yes.
Thank you.
Engagement.
Nancy, do you have anything or? No? Okay, Isabel or Doug? Oh, sorry. Sorry, delay. Go ahead.
Yes, so what I would say is it would be nice to have a common set of metrics around engagement for us to be able to describe our process as we move forward in this journey around engagement.
Okay.
So are you thinking like a, what are you thinking of when you say that? Like, would you like them, do you have one in mind, or are you asking them to invent one? I'm just wondering.
So I know that different groups and organizations who work with families have metrics around family or client engagement and the levels. And rather than reinvent something, I think that there are some applicable models that we could be using so that we'd have a shared common understanding of the journey and the processes.
Thank you for clarifying that. That's sort of was one of my questions in the packet. I think I was just wondering, like, what are the expectations around that? Like, what is the, standard practice? So, I mean, we're doing a lot. So.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Anything you want to add to that? Or? No? Okay, so did you have another idea? Okay, just checking. I want to make sure. So, I'm sort of interested in, I'm just a little bit interested in how it dovetails into all the feedback that you're getting, some of the things, I think in a couple other meetings, I think Isabel or someone said, maybe Michelle, they said, you know, we don't know what we don't know. We can't see where some of the problems are. So like I noticed there's not a lot in like the second area, like about like improving instruction. They're like, let's make the class sizes smaller, which would be great. I mean, you know, that's lovely, keeping the class sizes small. But as far as like, you know, I mean, we have some real issues there. So I'll be interested to see how it dovetails into not just what everyone can see from their own lens, but like what some of the needs are that the data's telling us we really need, like some help with the Hispanic and Latinx communities and other stuff, you know, that comes through. How do you end up looking at the data as well and then taking this feedback and it blends together?
Yes, so just to give you an example of how it'll help. So for example, you'll see where there was a plus to keep the SEL TOSAs, because we actually have very hard data this year on how that intervention has actually moved students to a place that we can now have that intervention occurring in the classrooms. And so Christina Valentine and Jonathan have really been working to develop some data metrics to really look and go a little bit deeper about what is the data really saying. And so so this type of information is kind of helping us to know what should we be looking at, what questions we should be asking. And then the other piece that we're trying to do is do a better job of our root cause analysis. Like, we know we have some problems and some areas that we need to improve upon, but what's beneath the problem? You know, is it something we're doing? Is it something we don't even know about? We don't know. So just doing a better job of analyzing when we see we have problems, and then being able to address that in a more targeted way versus just kind of dumping something on it. We want to be sure that if we intervene, we're intervening in a way based upon what the data has informed us on how we should intervene. So that's how we're trying to use some of the information that we're getting.
Thank you. Okay, so next item, you know, thank you so much for all this work, and it's so much information and like all the work that went into it, and then the summary and your presentation was just really helpful. I mean, I think we all wanted more information leading up to the LCAP, instead of just like, here's this enormous amount of information, like a fire hose of information. It's your only time to talk about it and go, and then you're done. So like I feel like this is going to be very helpful for us to, so when we get towards approval, like we're right there with you, you know, so thank you so much. Yay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next item is item 11B, which is review and discuss board policy 3516.5, emergency services.
Yes.
Dr. Dean.
Yes. So this is a particular update in policy, trying to prepare, in particular for districts that do not have an independent study program, so that they have something in place and a plan in place for that, and have specific waivers in place as well, as that if they need to, so that if in the event you need to shut down for a particular reason, you have some type of programming in place that's already been approved to be able to do that with the process. So this is in preparation for any potential emergency need to close schools and then be able to engage with students in some way. So just coming for support of this updated new policy.
Thank you. I don't see any public comment in person. If there's any member of the public who wishes to speak on this item, please use the raised hand feature now. Okay. Okay, I've seen any board, any questions or feedback on the update? Okay. Item C, review and discuss board policy 6164.4, identification and evaluation of individuals for special education. Dr. Dean.
Yes. Coming to you for an update of our policy to keep us in compliance with regards to Individuals with Disability Act, and this is regarding child find. And so the sole purpose of this is not all families know when they what services and supports may exist, and so this is a way to keep us in compliance that and also not just letting families reach out to us, but for us to reach out to families if in fact we think they have special needs so that we can actually support them. And then some of the policy updates with regards to COVID-19 or any other type of pandemic or situation that may come, us having protocols and plans in place for that as it relates to like our IEPs and other processes. So this is just coming with those updates to keep us compliant with IDEA.
Okay, if there's any member of the public who wishes to speak on this item, please use the raised hand feature now. Nope, not seeing any board comments or questions. Nope. Okay, thank you very much on that for the update. And item D, review and discuss board policy 6164.41, children with disabilities enrolled by their parents in private school. Dr. Dean.
Yes, thank you. So this is an update to our policy to serve students who may reside in a private school. And so the purpose of this, I know the board had some questions with regards to this, but the intent of this law is so that sometimes parents may or may not know what supports are even available. And so it's to inform them. So this is keeping in compliance with the law to inform private schools about what is available through special education services, and then also fine tune our processes and protocols so that if they have students who to reach out to and what the process is for that. And then if they do have students, we do provide assessment to those students, provide them an IEP and information, and then it's up to the parent to decide whether they want to accept those services. If for some reason they do not accept those services, then we have a blanket set of supports that we provide as a school district to our private schools as a part of our public funding through the SELFA programming. And so this is just coming with updates about that private school funding for children who have special needs.
Thank you. Is there any member of the, if there's any member of the public who wishes to speak on this item, please use the raised hand feature now. Okay, seeing none, and anything from the board? Nope, except for we're very grateful. So thank you so much for all your updates.
Absolutely.
Okay, great job, thank you. Okay, we're on to item 12, review and action, adoption of the facilities master plan and our construction update. Mr. Brent Burns, Director of Facilities and Operations.
Good evening, board members, cabinet, and community members. I want to first introduce two individuals that you're all familiar with, Walter Este with LPA, as well as Jamie Chen, principal of Sunnyvale Middle School. We'll be presenting on the facility master plan and the updates from our last meeting and hopefully adoption. Tonight, we're bringing the facility master plan forward for final consideration and adoption. We want to thank everybody that's been a part of this process. From the board members to the community members, educational partners, principals, all the way down to the students that have provided input on this process. Their input and feedback are what are helping develop and guide Sunnyvale School District today and for years to come. This facility master plan will guide our district for the next decade. We have every confidence that adopting this will continue to set the bar for our ability to have the highest student achievement for Sunnyvale School District. And with that, I want to turn the presentation over to Walter.
I quickly ask you to put your laptop over so you can see me. Thank you.
Yep.
That's good.
All right, thank you very much. Once again, thanks for being here. My name is Walter Este. I'm with LPA Design Studios. It's a pleasure to be here. And so members of the board and Superintendent Gallagher, executive cabinet, and even those stalkers in the back there, those guys, thanks very much. Just want to run through this presentation rather quickly today, and Brant and Jan are going to chime in here on some slides as well. But for today, just to quickly go over the agenda, you know our team, Jim and Andy couldn't be here tonight. They're at another board meeting, but What we really want to go over is just a quick summary of what we did at the first board workshop and what we heard from you and what those outcomes were. Talk about what we did at our steering committee and then the outcomes from that steering committee. So today what we're really looking at is approving and adopting the facilities master plan. Brant discussed that. And the next slide. Right here. Just a quick reminder here. So at that workshop on February 17th, we really wanted to present the total available funding and then what that meant in dollars, that $50 million mark to prioritize to that, to save that 1/3 for that interim housing, escalation costs, all those unknowns that we have right now. In addition to that, we presented you sort of a district-wide summary of the outcomes and the common priorities that we found with all the engagement we had, both with online surveys, with the students, the faculty, staff, parents, and then the principal priorities, school site priorities, and you can see those in that blue box. Really, common priorities were three were classroom modernization reconfiguration, multi-purpose rooms and food service, and then building systems. And so at that board meeting, we presented the total district facility needs. So it's about $275 million. And we also provide, as thought starters, 2 scenarios. Scenario 1 you see here, and on the next slide, scenario 2. And of course, one of the things we highlighted that, of course, the majority of the need is at Sunnyvale Middle School currently. You've done a great job, great work here in the district with your current bond, your current and past one that you're still working on. But the majority of the need was at Sunnyvale Middle School. And of course, we also want to touch certain projects and kind of look at the whole district. So with that, what we heard from the board were 2 things really. Sunnyvale Middle still has the most remaining need, less work done on that campus. And then the other part of it was the other board priorities. And so Brant's going to just touch on those other board priorities.
Yeah, so what we took from that board meeting is that HVAC was a critical component to consider as we're developing this facility master plan, as well as safety and security of all our sites. The second of that being the safety and security, obviously paramount for all our campuses. That also allows us to touch each campus as we're focusing our priorities on Sunnyvale Middle School so that each campus feels like they're getting attention that they deserve.
Next slide. So with that, we wanted to look at Sunnyvale Middle School and that total need and sort of, look at sort of strategic packages that make sense from a construction and delivery lens. And so these are all sort of digestible chunks that we think the district could potentially do. So what we did is, you can see and I'll go through these top left. Classrooms and new constructions along with those hard courts was about $43 million to do. And then existing classroom enhancements in the blue boxes was about $9 million. And then you can see new electives and then administration, entry point, parking and drop off about $2 million. On the next slide. Thank you. We had site-wide improvements. So things like HVAC, classroom furniture, technology upgrades, about $12 million. MPR and food service at Sunnyvale Middle, about $9.5 million. Athletic buildings, about $12 million. And library and student support, library media center, excuse me, some SDC rooms, is about $5.6 million. So that allowed us some digestible chunks that we could take a look at. And what we did is we reprioritized the thermometer. And so, Brant, I'll let you just talk about these.
Yeah, again, you're reiterating the fact that we took board consideration as well as priorities from scenario 2 and conducted the same sort of exercise that we had done for the board back in February. And we conducted that with the steering committee to come up with the prioritization list. So what we did was discuss each of the individual scopes that we just reviewed and went over, and one of the great things that LPA did was break it down chunk by chunk. It's easily digestible. You can tell each part of the campus that we're touching and the cost associated with it. So that allowed us to have very open and easy discussions on how we want to prioritize the available funding for Sunnyvale Middle School. I will say that the first and highest priority on this list was by far the easiest to come to. I think the entire steering committee decided that having a systematic failure of HVAC systems at multiple sites was not something that we wanted to find out how people reacted to. The next two, again, Sunnyvale Middle School's HVAC improvements and then safety improvements. That's a pretty encompassing scope. It's not just security of fencing and gates and locks. I mean, we're talking about repaving and asphalt and digital marquees. All that was encompassed in that scope. So those are visible projects that improve how the community perceives and how students and staff perceive the site. So we elected to keep that where it is. And then once we got to this part, this is where it got a little more tricky. There was more debate and conversation on what we plan to do here. And ultimately, we elected to go with building a 2-story classroom building. And primarily it was to show a commitment to Sunnyvale and all the taxpayers and everybody that's been contributing to the bond fund. And it's because the other reason is that it creates 26 new classrooms, give or take. This is still design development, but it makes a huge impact to the campus. Brand new state-of-the-art 2-story classroom building and eliminating some of the temporary portables. And all that, Jane?
Yeah, and so as I've learned, we don't get everything we want in life, right? So we have to prioritize. And so some of the discussions that occurred was, well, then, do we do the administration building? Do we do the multi-purpose rooms? Do we do the LRC? And so in the discussion, we pretty much decided that who is our clientele? It's the students, right? And so we want to serve our students. And the best way to serve our students is to give them classrooms that are modernized and allow them to be able to have the best learning environment. And so that's how we ended up deciding on these priorities was we want to serve our students.
Yeah, and one of the other scopes that we all touched on was the administration building in the front entry. And everybody in that committee agrees that that is something that we want to accomplish. But to Jen's point, accomplishing the staff and the student areas first would be the priority for the available funding that we have.
So, we know children all learn differently, so board members do too. So this is just another way to look at it. And so basically priorities, beginning with the highest priority is at the top here. So we talked about the HVAC improvements, safety improvements. And then you see the hidden line or the dotted line there. That's basically represents that $50 million mark. But we continue to prioritize, as Brandon and Jane said, and looking at all those classrooms, technology upgrades, athletic improvements. Because one of the great things for you guys is you have some funding on hand. And so the sooner those projects start, you probably have less escalation. You may have little to no interim housing costs. So if you find savings along the way, then hopefully some of those below the line projects will move up and you'll be able to achieve even more at the campus.
And that is another great component of having a facility master plan be digital, it's living. We're going to be able to update this as we go. As we check projects off the list, we can update funding and everybody can see what we've done and what we have available. So when savings is realized, everybody will have a chance to see it and see what we can do next.
And then finally, because we're architects, we like to draw things. And so this is just a graphic representation of the dark blue or the blue is the 2-story classroom building in the back of the campus. And the green, of course, is the hard courts that would make sense to do it at the same time with the removable of all those portables. And then the light blue hatch you see would be were prioritized below the line, right, over that 50 million mark. But you can see how if we could get all that $75 million worth of projects at some point, you can really touch almost every bit of the campus. And it's going to affect all the students. You're going to make a lot of teachers happy. And I think it'll be fantastic for the district. And finally, just want to remind everybody that the master plan website is available, and we will upload these plans, assuming the board adopts, and get that updated. And I believe, it's the other slide. Well, finally, I just would like to say we have, this has been a long master plan for us because we took a little pause. A lot of things happened, as we all know. But we do a number of master plans. We've done over, I think, 85, almost 90 master plans now in our tenure doing K-12 facilities. I just want to thank everybody here because you've been a fantastic district to work with. Superintendent Gallagher, Brent, his team, Myron, especially board members. You know, you do your homework, you give great feedback, and I just want to thank you because it's not like this in every district, so we certainly appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, oh, sorry, I was just to say with that, we were gonna open it up to any questions.
First, we have to ask for public comments.
Oh, sorry.
Really quick. So I don't see anyone in person, but if there's a member of the public online who would like to make a comment or ask a question about this item, please use the raise hand feature now. Okay, seeing that, board?
Yeah, I just wanted to add kind of extra peek before, obviously, it wasn't helping in the process, but that one of the reasons, other than, well, because it will serve the most students as quickly as possible to make the building, and to make that involves not just the new classrooms, but the outdoor classrooms, and all the outdoor, that outdoor fencing and the involvement. It's not that it's just gonna affect the kids very fast in a very good, efficient, and modern way, but also the fact that we're gonna build a new structure is also gonna feel everybody worthy and more important for once, and also it's gonna look towards Mary, and it's gonna be like a flag, like we're doing it, we're here, we care, and people is gonna see what we're doing, and people is gonna be more open to fund the second part in the next bond that we're gonna have to ask to fund the second part, because we will finish it, but we're gonna need, the other half of the project, and in order to have, a new building instead of just painting inside some older classrooms or doing something with doing a big statement, beautiful, efficient, green, showing everybody in front of Mary, this is what we're doing, we're amazing, help us to do more.
Good sales pitch, I like that.
Looking like an architect.
No, I love it. So I have something to say, but does anyone else have anything they want to add? Right now? Okay, well, I just want to say, I actually worked the first year before we kind of shut down. I know Isabel worked on it with Michelle and everybody. There was just so many opportunities to input. I thought the process was really great. And I actually would like to showcase this on our website a little bit, because I did a search. I did a little search to the thing on our website and I couldn't find the link to it. So maybe I just typed in the wrong words or something. So, but I just think, once we approve it and it goes up, it's just gonna be awesome. And I hope we really tell the great story of how we got there. And I think it's so cool that it started when you began as superintendent as well, right? Because it's really you got to be in on the vision. I mean, how many people get to just say, okay, this is what we want to do for the next 10 years with all our facilities. It's so exciting. So it's really a great thing to be a part of. So I appreciate it a lot. And I'm really excited for SMS. I really loved it. And I feel really bad for the office right now, you know, like, oh, they're gonna, but you know, hopefully we'll go get that money and it'll be fine. So, but no, it's gonna be great for everyone and for Sunnyvale. So thank you. Thanks for all your work on that.
Thank you.
Yay. Okay, so board, do we have a motion to move to approve the facilities master plan as presented?
I move to approve the facility master plan as presented.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Nancy. And up. Okay, so any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Chair votes aye, and with that, the motion passes. So thank you so much. You did it. Yay! Good job. Okay, so now we get the construction update. It's still the same. Is it the same item? Yes, it's still the same item. Great.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so before I start, I want to introduce, I know you've all met him before, but Myron Collin, Capital Project Manager. Be our first presentation together, so yeah,
Great.
excited. Yeah, I rolled the dice a little bit on preparing this, because if you guys didn't adopt, this is not gonna work tonight.
Okay, good to know.
With the adoption of the facility master plan this evening, we're going to be sharing construction updates for LS Elementary School, as well as our future projects, which are aligning with the prioritization list just shared in the FMP. In October of this past year, we kicked off the multi-year site-wide modernization at Ellis. It is always a balancing act to minimize disruption to student instruction, keep a reasonable time frame on a project, as well as keep the project costs down. And the best way to accomplish all of those is to phase this project. Our general practice is to front load our construction projects, as we said earlier, with the most impactful buildings in regards to student instruction. And this project was no different. In phase one, we have 3 2-story classroom buildings that comprise 22 classrooms. And we also have the administration building and classrooms 11 through 15. Some of the key milestones that you'll see for phase one, which we are currently in, is by the start of the 2022-2023 school year, we will be turning over the administration building. We will also be turning over building M, which is rooms 11 through 15. Those rooms will be receiving AV upgrades, new carpeting, new casework, new layout inside the classrooms. That'll be all this summer. Then the next most critical milestone for this whole project is going to be the 2-story classroom wings, and those are slated to be completed spring of 2023.
I want to thank the board for your time. I recognize it's the first time you're formally addressing all you wonderful folks. Since I started as your new capital project manager at Sunnyvale, the day-to-day of construction administration for Ellis Modernization has been on my plate. So it kind of puts me in the fine position of giving you the more granular updates of currently where we stand with the project. So looking at the order of photos we have, let's start with building A. So based on the phasing plan that Brent highlighted, we're really focusing on getting building B and building A up and running right now. So building A is the administration building. We're totally renovating the front office, and we're adding on a new addition to it, which it comprises of a staff lounge, a staff workroom, and additional restrooms. Building B, with the large 2-story classroom building, which will have 22 classrooms. The photo there shows us pouring the foundations. So if you happen to go by there in a week or two, you'll start seeing this steel start going up. So it's going to be some very visible progress very soon. Above the fence line, I should say. Right now, everything's kind of covered up by the fence line. So the third thing that we're really pushing to accomplish quickly is the new PG&E electrical pad. This is the new service upgrade because the existing campus doesn't have enough electrical capacity accommodate all the new buildings we have in store. So not only is there additional capacity in this new service, we're actually adding additional capacity for the solar panels that are eventually going to building B and building C. So this infrastructure allows us to feed that energy back to the grid.
All right, so as you all know, the original contract for this project was with Sosol, and it was for $42,581,000. And with the project of this magnitude for the duration that we have, we fully anticipated seeing about $1 million per month in pay applications. And to this point, that has remained reasonably true. We're 6 months in, and they have invoiced to date $6.5 million.
So a couple of months back, Brandon and I went to a cash conference in Sacramento. We attended many sessions, and it's a California Association of School Housing. And at what top of everyone's mind was kind of like the global supply crisis and how that affects school construction. So this particular session that Brandon and I attended was called "Everything's So Darn Expensive." And this slide is taken directly from that presentation. And what it really, if you can read it from this far, is trying to highlight is basically the long lead times, like, you know, very common building components are facing to get to site. So for example, like HVAC components, 6 months, which is twice the industry standard of what it used to be. That said, not only things are taking longer to get here, things are getting more expensive, but so I think the question on everyone's mind is how does it affect Alice? So I'm happy to report so far we've been able to mitigate a lot of these impacts. A lot of what we've been doing is working with contractors to allow them to procure a lot of their building materials as early as possible, and giving them lay down space, giving them additional space on site for their shipping containers so they can get those lights in there, even though they're not going to be installed for another year or two because of the long duration of this project. Another thing that we're working proactively with the design team is working out alternatives. So if we can't find, you know, a particular item that we have specified, we work with our architect at ADIS to find suitable alternatives that are equal or better. So that's how we've been faring so far on that issue.
All right, and that concludes the Ellis updates. I guess I'll stop and ask if you guys have any questions on those updates.
Oh, very excited.
Okay, press forward.
Yeah.
Quick updates on the PG&E grant program that we were accepted into for both Fairway and CMS. Originally, this project was slated to start spring of this year. PG&E has had staff shortages, as well as their review times have taken longer. So as of this week, their project manager says we can expect construction to start at the tail end of July into August. Construction is about 6 to 8 weeks. I will continue to update the sites because obviously this project will be happening when school comes back. It'll be inconvenient, but the benefits and the value of this project to Sunnyvale are worth the headache for a month. All right, Fairway Elementary School. This is a unique campus in the sense that it is one of the most impacted sites in regards to accessible blacktop area for the students. That is coupled with the fact that their open space did not have a perimeter fence. So both staff as well as parents had voiced concerns about their students playing out there during the day because there was no way to contain them or to keep public out. So what we did was reviewed our open space agreement, met with the city director of parks to review our plans, and ultimately came up with this idea, which is enclosing that turf area with chain link fence to create that secure area. And hopefully that helps alleviate that impacted asphalt area that they currently have so that they can go out and play a little more freely. We will be having a town hall at the end of May, and we will send out notifications through district messaging and site messaging.
Nice.
I have a question about Fairwood. Sorry, for Fairwood, so then if you're looking at the field from the playground on the primary side by the kindergarten classroom, like if you're looking out at the field, will there be a fence there?
You're talking about down there?
Yeah.
So there is a fence there currently.
Yeah.
And that fence is gonna remain, and so this fence, it's unique, and that's a great question. So you'll notice that fence is not pulled all the way back to the walkway there.
Right.
That's actually our property line, like right where that is. So that's as far as we could pull in that way. But that will, like that kinder
So that
primary
fence
playground.
stays.
Yes,
And then so the field is really gonna be over on the upper grade playground.
there still is a gate on that primary side to get out to that field there.
Will they have to use like the little key lock and things, or will it be a?
Great question. Currently, yes, that is how they would do that. But you can actually, so since that will be a secure campus at that point, that gate could remain open during the day. And then obviously when those gates open, that gate would shut them off. So, but that is a good question.
Oh, Nancy? Thank you.
Yes, I have a question. When you talk about the town hall, is that also including the community, the neighbors around that particular area?
It is. So we will message out with Aaliyah, we'll send out messages from the site. And then what I've done in the past, and I'll continue to do with Myron, is we'll actually print flyers and walk around the block and leave it on people's doorsteps. So we will do everything we can to get it out to as many people around that community as possible.
And then
There are neighborhood groups that can also spread that particular message as well. I just from past experience, you can never message enough. People will always be surprised.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will do everything. And I may reach out to you and ask you if you have contact information for those neighborhood groups as well, to make sure we don't miss them.
Yes.
Isabel?
Yeah,
Thank you.
and of course,
Mhm.
well, I think that's understood, but you stated that it's gonna remain open when the school is closed, so, because there are a lot of, I mean, that area in the back is gonna remain open for the community. When the school is closed, we're gonna close our school, and the red fencing, the community can still use the,
Over in this area?
no, the part where we're putting the fencing.
Yeah.
Like during the weekends, they can still use the
Yes,
field and all that.
it'll be just like the majority of our other sites that have
Yeah.
fencing around the turf area. It'll be open when school is not in session for public to continue to use and access.
Okay, yeah, because it's very used during the weekends. They have a lot of soccer
Yeah,
teams playing
yep.
with kids and adults.
Yeah, so we placed the gates for pedestrian access as well as vehicular access for some of the lawnmowers that the city uses to help maintain our fields.
Yeah.
So that's we're very cognizant of making sure those are placed in a good place.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks. Okay, so one of the things Brant talked about a lot with his facility master plan and what they identified was sort of the aging HVAC systems at multiple campuses. So I'm going to be talking about 3 campuses that were discussed: San Miguel, Vargas, and Fairway. I'm going to put San Miguel first because this is furthest along, even prior to the report generated by LP and their consultants that really highlighted that these units are overdue for replacement. Our technicians knew about it already. You know, our in-house HVAC technicians have a disproportionate rate of going there to make sure that, you know, repair rate to go out there, make sure they're operational. So that's why this project is so far along compared to the other 2. This project has already received DSA approval. We're looking to bid this project this fall, just so we are ready for summer 2023 construction. Any questions on this?
And this one was,
Nancy, do you still have your hand up from before, or do you have your hand up again?
That's from before.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
yeah, and to my report, this project is further along because originally, and this goes back to his comments on material lead items. Originally, we were going to try to do this summer. And in a normal world, we would have did this in February and completed it over the summer. By February, lead times got to like 6-7 months. So there's no way for us to bid it and actually complete it.
So I'm going to talk about Fairway and Vargas in conjunction for brevity. They're about the same phase of development. We only met with the designers and engineers on site last week. It is our preference to go as green as possible. So we want to look at, can we go with heat pumps that rely on electricity as opposed to gas powered units. So that's all about feasibility though, whether like the sites have electrical capacity. I mean, if you need to do a new upgraded PG&E service, we're looking at $500,000 just on that alone. based on what we're looking at San Miguel, that really changes the feasibility factor. And with newer units, they tend to be more efficient, but they're heavier. So you're also looking at things about like, what do we need to upgrade structural, the rooftop and all those kind of things. So those are kind of data points that we're still gathering at the moment, and we don't have a clear recommendation for the board yet. Yeah.
Lastly, since we're talking about construction, I thought this would be a decent time to bring up the schedule for developer fee adoption. In January, the State Allocation Board raised the rates that you can charge level 1 developer fees by a pretty exorbitant amount, actually, 17.6%. And there's an entire process in regards to to accepting those and adopting those developer fees. And so what I've done is reached out to a consultant as well as DWK to get input, because new legislation was passed this year on the requirements required to have a nexus between needs and use of these developer fees. So currently we are towards the tail end of completing that final developer fee justification report. And we will be advertising public hearing on May 20th and then having public hearing at the June 2nd board meeting, in which I hope that we can adopt the new level 1 developer fees for Sunnyvale. And that concludes our presentation.
Can I add one more piece?
Yeah, of course.
I'd be remiss if I didn't add that, like, I wanted on the slide that had all the long wait times. We understand that the storefronts at Sunnyvale Middle School are a concern. We are in the middle of trying to get that addressed. We're trying to fight through those wait times. So if not by summer, by fall is our target to get some of those doors working as they should.
Yes, Myron has done an extensive amount of legwork to try to get this pushed forward. So I
just forgot that piece in there, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just gonna, even though we adopted that, I would just like to open it up for questions from the public. So if there's anyone who would like to ask a question or make a comment about the construction projects, please use the raised hand feature now. Nope, okay. Board, anything else to add? No? Okay, well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And do you have any information about the Lakewood Library? I know it's not you.
Yeah, so, well, I do have
Not on the agenda.
Oh, I just was wondering, okay, never mind. Will you send it out in an update or something?
Sure.
Okay,
Give it to me in alternate.
sorry. Okay.
He's gotta be careful.
Oh, yeah, okay.
There's not much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll never know, we'll know eventually.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
sounds good. Thank you so much. Okay, yay. Okay, well, good catch. All right, we're on. Oh, item B, approval of resolution R22-18 in the matter of supporting Fremont Union High School District's Measure G bond campaign. Dr. Gallagher.
Yes, so at the last meeting, you remember Superintendent Bove and her team came to speak to us about their upcoming Measure G. And so we included in the packet the actual language from the ballot. And it's our recommendation that we support the resolution before you to support G's bond campaign.
Thank you. If there's any member of the public who'd like to ask a question or make a comment, please use the raised hand feature now. No? Okay, I'm not seeing any board, any clarifying questions. Or do we have a motion?
I think Nancy has.
Oh, do you have a clarifying question or?
No, I wanted to make the motion.
Okay.
I move approval of resolution R22-18, supporting Fremont Union High School's District Measure G bond campaign.
I second. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Chair votes aye, and with that, the motion passes. Thank you for bringing forward that resolution. Item C, approval of the memorandum of understanding MOU between Sunnyvale School District and Sunnyvale Education Association regarding inclusion of special day class students in general education rosters. Is that Shihara?
Yes, thank you, President Watson. So this MOU in front of you was jointly developed actually as a byproduct of our ongoing negotiations with our teacher association. I'm pleased to bring this MOU to you kind of with the I guess the spirit of flexibility and reinvention of our systems. And so in a nutshell, we wanted to try and leverage our overall loose staffing in our classrooms to then take the next step to make sure we're having a place for any special ed student to be able to be mainstreamed at any moment, if that makes any sense, on the roster. And so we still are in ongoing negotiations, but this was a great example of our interest-based process, our collaborative spirit. And I apologize, this is gonna be a little weird. During the process, I felt like I had a little Bridget on my shoulder here. If you recall several board meetings ago regarding our equity statement, it was like, let's just try it, let's go and try it. And so instead of, because we could have got bogged down, to be honest, in a lot of the specific details of language, but there's enough trust and relationship there to say we gotta try it. We know it's gonna be, I think I'm known for saying approximately right and exactly wrong, but this MOU is for next year to give us a try to see how this goes. There's gonna be some great benefits. There's gonna be some pain points that we were not aware of, but we're overall excited to bring this forward. And then I guess the last piece I'll say is when I presented this to cabinet, Tasha actually stood up and like did a little dance. But yes, it checks a lot of boxes for us, inclusion, equity, et cetera. So I bring this MOU for our approval. And then again, it's coming to you now so that we can actually take advantage of it as we plan for our classing and staffing for next year.
Yes, okay, if there's any member of the public who wishes to speak on this item, please use the raise hand feature now. Were any questions or comments about this? No, very excited. I'm very excited about this, so thank you very much. Board, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the approval of memorandum of understanding of MOU between the Sunnyvale School District and Sunnyvale Education Association for inclusion of the special day class students and general education students.
A second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, with that, the chair votes aye. With that, the motion passes. Thank you very much. Item 13 is consent agenda items. Any item on the consent agenda is subject to review and discussion prior to being approved by the board. If necessary, any items may be removed for separate action. The public may address the board regarding any items on the consent agenda. If there's any member of the public who wishes to speak on the consent agenda, please use the raised hand feature now. Would the board like to pull any item for a separate consideration?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Excellent.
I'll second that.
Okay, board, any questions or comments? Oh, wait, no. Oh, is that right? Is that the right order? No. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, chair votes aye. Consent agenda is passed. Thank you, everyone. If there's an information agenda, we don't go through that. It's just on there. We do not need to convene to go to closed session again. So do we have to modify anything because we said we might?
We are going to talk, we need to call out for future meetings, the special board development meeting on Friday.
Yeah, so all we have left would be the future meetings in adjournment. Okay, so future meetings would be Thursday, May 13th, 2022. So it's 5:30, correct? 5:30 is when it is?
Friday, May 13th.
Okay,
Friday.
okay, Friday the 13th. Okay, it's gonna be awesome. Not scary at all. Friday the 13th, at 5:30 p.m.
Yes.
Governance board meeting, district office boardroom. It is
And then we might add some short close meeting into that.
Oh,
Well,
we
we can
can
do that.
talk about that after. We can close this meeting now though. 8:55, is that ish?
Yep.
8:57? This meeting's adjourned. Yay. Thank you.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Hey. And we're still awake. So we pretty much finished everything, but